rationalizing denominators last class, and now we have to rationalize a binomial denominator. So what that means is I'm going to have two things in the denominator and not just one. So if you have a binomial in the denominator, you must multiply both numerator and denominator by the conjugate of the denominator, which we talked about last class and in the warm-up. So a conjugate means that if I have a positive, the conjugate's negative. If I have a negative, the conjugate's positive. That's the only thing a conjugate really means. So in this first example, I have 1 plus square root of 2 in the denominator. The conjugate is just 1 minus square root of 2. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 1 minus. Does not matter what the numerator says, it just matters what the denominator says. I'm going to rewrite this, so that's my second step, just so that it looks more like multiplication to me. So 3 times 1 minus square root of 2 over 1 plus square root of 2 times 1 minus square root of 2. This step and this step are exactly the same. They just look different because this looks more familiar to us. Next step, you want to actually multiply. So this I'm going to distribute. So I'll have 3 minus 3 root 2. And then these, the denominator, are my conjugate ones, negative. You could do the box method for it, but we're going to start taking that shortcut. If you're more comfortable doing the box method, go for it. But the shortcut just says I'm going to multiply the first two terms. So 1 times 1 is just 1. And then multiply the second two terms together. So square root of 2 times the square root of 2. So what's 2 times 2? What's the square root of 4? 2. So it just becomes 2. And then you put a minus sign in between. So instead of doing that entire box method for that problem, you could just... The only thing you have left is a little bit of simplification. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1. So I have 3 minus 3 root 2 over negative 1. And then to completely simplify it at the end, I'm just going to put negative 1 into 3 and negative 1 into that negative 3. So 3 divided by negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 1 is positive 3. And that's the best simplified version. The one before it is fine too. All the steps are the same. So whatever we did for that first example, we're going to do for 15, 16, and 17. So my first step in the next problem for 15 is to multiply by the conjugate. So step 1, multiply by the conjugate. So we have to figure out what the conjugate is in this problem. Good. So I'm multiplying by square root of 2. It was positive in the denominator. Second step, I usually rewrite it. You can skip this step if you want to. So we have 7 square root of 2 minus square root of 13 over square root of 2 plus square root of 13 times square root of 2 minus square root of 13. I rewrite it because that looks better to me than that. If I were doing it on my own, I wouldn't rewrite it, but your step is going to be to distribute or to multiply, same thing. So I'm distributing the 7, so I have 7 root 2 minus 7 root 13. And then in the denominator, I'm taking my shortcut. So the shortcut is root 2 times root 2, which is just 2. Good.
This is a lot.
And then root 13 times root 13 is 13. Good. And then I put a minus sign in between. Fourth step. Simplify. So 7 root 2 minus 7 root 13. Can I subtract the things? What'd you say, Will?
No.
No, why?
No, because you cannot do the mathematics required by the rules of rationalizing.
Perfect answer. It doesn't have the same radicand. So, and 13 are not the same number, so I can't subtract these two things. So that can't be simplified any further. So I'm just going to rewrite root 2 minus 7 root 13. And then 2 minus 13 is negative 11, so that's my final answer.
So I was right.
Yeah.
I was going to, you didn't let me finish my statement.
I have 2 more problems to this set of notes because we did most of them last class. So.
Yes. It's like me going like, come on.
Because it's a period today, we're not going to be doing the book work on the bottom. We're going to do a quiz review instead. All right, 16. Same first step. So I need to multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate. What do you think the conjugate is in this case?
The conjugate is 1.
No.
No, 7.
Good. So it doesn't matter that I have all of this stuff in the numerator. The conjugate is still coming from the denominator. So I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by square root of 2 plus square root of 7 because it was negative in the denominator.
So is the conjugate the denominator?
Yes, the conjugate is always going to come from the denominator. So it's the opposite sign of whatever's in the denominator. If there's not 2 things in here, you don't have to go through all of this. You just rationalize like we did last class. But because we have 2 separate things in here, that's why we have to do it this way. You're welcome. So my next step is usually to rewrite this, which that's up to you if you do that. Now, on problem, the numerator has 2 binomials in it, which means I do have to do the box anyway. I just don't have to do it for the denominator because I can take my shortcut. So this is for the numerator. Square root of 5. Square root of 2. Square root of 7. So this is just so I can figure out what goes in the numerator. What's square root of 2 times square root of 3? Good. Well, what's square root of 2 times square root of 5?
What? Square root of 2. Do I multiply? No.
What is 5 times?
Oh. 25. Air hug, air hug.
Alright, is square root of 7 times square root of 3?
So confident.
What'd you say?
I did that on purpose.
What is square root of 7 times square root of 3? Yeah, well, square root of 21. And what is square root of 7 times square root of 5?
Goodness, this is square.
What is 7 times 5?
Oh, I thought she said will. I was like, this is termination.
Thank you, square root of 35. So, unfortunately, not one of them have the same radicand, so I can't combine any of them, and they can't be simplified to be able to add them. So, in my numerator, I have x plus square root of 10 plus square root of 21 plus square root of 35. And then I can take the shortcut in my denominator. Good, 2 minus 7. Final answer will be, just to simplify the denominator, what's 2 minus 7? Good, negative 5 square root of 10, plus square root of 21, plus square root of 35, all over negative 5.
If I would have known that Sammy was already here, then I would have told you.
All right, last question. Teen, we have to add some variables in there so that we can round out the entire section of 8.5. So my conjugate is what I'm multiplying by. Go ahead. Good. So square root of x minus square root of y.
You should have.
3 right, if you'd like.
I kind of wanted to do that.
Next step is to distribute. So I can't do too much in the numerator, just 2 root x minus 2 root y. Perfect. Yep, you're taking that shortcut, and it's just x minus y. And for that one, that's your final answer.
I didn't do a shortcut, I just gave you the box method.